What happens when a beloved game franchise like Dragon Age is transformed by identity politics? When activists take over the storytelling the escapism fans loved? BioWare just gave us the answer with Dragon Age Veilguard, and here's the real twist critical drinker. One of the internet's most brutally honest critics stepped in to break down exactly why this game is spiraling. From clumsy dialogue that sounds like an HR seminar to forced agendas that fans say ruined the game, there's no shortage of drama here. BioWare? They're scrambling to control the backlash, but is it already too late? Stay tuned as we dive into Critical Drinker's most cutting critiques of this disaster. Once considered a prestigious studio, BioWare has stirred up a storm by diving headfirst into identity politics. Instead of the skilled developers and writers who built the studio's legacy, BioWare seems to have replaced them with activists.
You know, like a lot of people, I was pretty excited at the prospect of a new Dragon Age game. I mean, I'd played Inquisition back in the day, and while it wasn't the deepest or most sophisticated RPG ever, it was still a fun game with some decent characters, a detailed world, and a rewarding combat system that kept me reliably amused for a few weeks. BioWare have a mostly decent reputation as a game developer, and they'd been working on this thing for almost 10 years, so surely the Veilguard would turn out to be their magnum opus.
I could kiss you right now. I'm going to kiss you right now.
Oh, how wrong I was. At least according to the reviews that I've read, the gameplay footage and the excruciating cutscenes I've had to endure. As best as I can tell, the Veilguard is basically a perfect microcosm of everything that's bad in modern gaming. Tedious and simplistic combat, uninspired level design, shallow storylines, horrendous character animations, and conversations that feel more like a group therapy session for the writers than something that real people would ever say. You know, you can always tell when characters have been written by people like this because they all have a high degree of what I can best describe as acute pussification syndrome. It's like taking a regular person and carefully sanding away every rough edge to produce something as safe and unthreatening and inoffensive as possible. They all display the same blandly agreeable mannerisms, the same chirpy, non-confrontational attitude, the same weirdly desperate politeness, like they're all meeting each other for the first time at some corporate seminar. It all feels so fake and forced and soulless, like the writers are so terrified of having their characters say or do anything that might offend someone that they've basically scrubbed away every trace of personality. And it completely misses the essence of what friendships are supposed to be. There's no spark, no warmth, no fire, no humanity. Friends don't always agree with everything that you say, they don't share your opinions on every issue, and they don't just benignly nod and smile when you start demanding to be treated a certain way. Friends are supposed to be honest with each other, and that often means speaking their minds and disagreeing about stuff, and maybe ultimately finding some common grounds. They also tend to make fun of each other, especially men, and that is not a bad thing. It's an important sign that they feel comfortable enough to share that kind of easygoing banter and honesty. If your so-called group of friends all treat you with kid gloves and are super polite and agreeable whenever you're around, then you should be on your guard because it's a sure sign they either don't like or don't trust you. Scenes like this and so many others I've seen from this game feel more like a group role-playing session at a company getaway where everyone's trying to act funny and natural but desperately hoping not to say or do anything controversial that will get them in trouble. It's the same story with the supposedly romantic moments, like this scene that made me cringe so hard my spinal column practically separated from my body.
I could kiss you right now. I'm going to kiss you right now.
Really?
Here's a pro tip, ladies and gentlemen. Announcing that you're about to kiss someone right before doing it is possibly the single biggest turn-off a human being can experience, especially when it's delivered in a tone of voice that doesn't contain a single atom of romantic passion or physical attraction. This is a first kiss written by people that have never kissed another adult human being in their entire lives. It's romance if it were conceived by a corporate HR consultant, and it's so goddamn soul-destroying to think this is how humans are supposed to get on with each other.
I'm glad the Lords of Fortune have Tarsh's back.
Oh, Tarsh isn't the first non-binary member of the Lords.
Really?
It was a little before your time, but Horlicks was one of ours. Huh. Bastard looked better than I did in a dress or pants. And out of them too.
Honestly guys, walk me through your thought process on this one. How exactly did you imagine a scene like this was going to go down with your average gamer who's a bit tired of modern culture and just wants some escapist entertainment in a world of fantasy and adventure? And don't get me wrong here, that's not to say you can't tackle subjects like this, it's just that it has to be handled properly. You can't just beat the player over the head with the writer's own personal angst and hang-ups. Why is this game so obsessed with gender and identity anyway? Oh, okay.
Their agenda? Making a statement at the cost of both game quality and fan loyalty. Dragon Age Veilguard was supposed to be another grand chapter in the franchise's legacy, a series loved for its immersive storytelling and rich lore. Yet, many fans now feel that BioWare has traded authentic character development and intricate plots for heavy-handed messaging. The result? A polarized reception that has fans and critics alike slamming BioWare's decisions, with some calling Veilguard one of the most divisive games in recent memory. The studio now finds itself under fire like never before, with gamers practically uniting across the internet to voice their frustration. Even Critical Drinker, a well-known entertainment commentator, couldn't ignore the issue. He's left his usual style behind to address what he sees as the game's biggest failings. Now let's take a closer look at what's gone wrong, starting with Critical Drinker's perspective on BioWare's supposed masterpiece. But Veilguard isn't alone in disappointing fans. Recently, Star Wars Outlaws also struggled despite Ubisoft's massive marketing budget and one of the most popular entertainment franchises backing it. With an unappealing story, uninspired world design, and a protagonist that failed to resonate, Outlaws felt underwhelming despite its big-name affiliations. It's just one of many Ubisoft projects that have struggled this year, adding to the challenges for AA Studios. Next, let's discuss Assassin's Creed Shadows, which managed to disappoint fans even before its release. Fans noticed glaring historical inaccuracies and a lack of cultural authenticity, leading to a loud backlash that prompted Ubisoft to delay the game until next year. Many fans, however, are still skeptical, saying no quick fixes can truly solve the core issues. Japanese fans in particular felt misrepresented, and this misstep has severely damaged the game's reputation. The concern now is whether Shadows can regain the trust it's lost, or if it will flop upon launch regardless of the delay. But Shadows isn't alone in Ubisoft's recent run of setbacks. Concord, an Overwatch-inspired title, was expected to bring diversity and innovation to team-based shooters. But after almost a decade in development, the launch was met with disappointment. Fans criticized its uninspired character designs and lackluster gameplay, calling it a poor imitation of better games in the genre. The launch went so badly that the entire studio behind Concord shut down, and Sony issued refunds just 2 weeks post-launch. It's a cautionary tale of what can go wrong when development timelines and audience expectations don't align. Yet, despite these industry missteps, Dragon Age Veilguard stands out. Why? It's a sequel to a Game of the Year winner. Fans had high hopes, expecting BioWare to honor the legacy of Dragon Age, but many feel they got a story that reads more like activist fan fiction than a true continuation of the dark, complex world they loved. The plot felt forced, with characters and dialogue so out of place that it alienated fans seeking escapism. The choice of game director raised a few eyebrows. Self-described as a queer, sexual, and gender Mensa, their approach seemed focused more on messaging than on Dragon Age's unique lore and atmosphere. This wouldn't necessarily be an issue if done skillfully, but the themes felt clumsy and out of place. In a medieval fantasy setting, hearing terms like non-binary jarred players, making it hard to stay immersed in this otherworldly universe. The narrative felt constantly interrupted, pulling players out of the fantasy they came for. In Dragon Age, fans expect adventure, dark intrigue, and a world removed from modern politics, but shoehorning in real-world social issues disrupts that experience, leaving players feeling like they're participating in a lecture rather than a fantasy escape. BioWare's choices with Veilguard have divided the gaming community, and many feel it's a prime example of what happens when a studio loses touch with its core audience. In Veilguard, fans noticed how shallow the characters felt, with dialogue that seemed more about inclusivity than engaging storytelling. Critical Drinker argues that when political activists lead the creation of entertainment, they often end up delivering messages rather than compelling characters with depth and flaws. In Veilguard, characters come across as one-dimensional, designed to embody a correct worldview, making them predictable, stale, and unengaging. SkillUp, another popular critic, described the character interactions as if HR is in the room at all times, every line is sanitized, every word carefully calculated to avoid even the slightest hint of offense. In Veilguard, dialogue feels scrubbed of anything remotely real, leaving players with interactions that seem manufactured rather than meaningful. It's as though the developers believe audiences can't handle unfiltered dialogue, when in reality, fans crave the authenticity that once defined Dragon Age. In a game like Dragon Age, believable friendships and romances rely on characters letting their guard down, challenging each other, and sometimes even clashing. Yet Veilguard misses this completely. According to Critical Drinker, friendships in the game feel more like polite exchanges than genuine bonds. It's hard to invest in characters who act like coworkers rather than companions. BioWare's choice to prioritize activism over storytelling has severely weakened Veilguard's emotional impact. Without realistic dialogue or chemistry, the character relationships feel stiff and artificial, as if they're merely pretending to be friends or lovers. One particularly awkward scene, highlighted by Critical Drinker, shows how out of touch the writing has become. A kiss so constrained it's almost laughable, as though it required a formal consent form just to break the tension. Ultimately, the dialogue, relationships, and character arcs in Veilguard leave players disconnected, a far cry from the gripping storytelling that once defined Dragon Age. This scene with the awkwardly announced kiss has become symbolic of everything fans feel went wrong with BioWare's latest release. Rather than a spontaneous, heartfelt moment, it played out like a formal transaction, exposing a rigid, agenda-driven tone that feels disconnected from reality. It's one thing to promote respectful interactions, but Veilguard takes it to a point that feels unnatural. Real friendships and romantic relationships are often filled with imperfections, informal exchanges, and occasional missteps. In his review, Critical Drinker notes that trying to sanitize everything detracts from the fantasy escape that players seek. BioWare's decision to push ideology over story has done more than disappoint fans. It's turned what could have been a meaningful message into something preachy and off-putting. Critical Drinker's takeaway? Trying to push values in an overt, heavy-handed way sacrifices authenticity and character development and only creates more backlash. Veilguard borrows the least successful elements from other troubled releases like Forspoken's over-engineered dialogue and Concord's uninspired character designs, resulting in a product that feels like it disrespects Dragon Age's legacy. While corporate gaming media might praise the game's socially conscious message, fans see it as BioWare turning away from what they loved about the franchise. The cost could be steep. BioWare's trust with its audience is now at risk, and rebuilding that relationship won't be easy. Even if Veilguard manages short-term success, the long-term consequences could be severe. The franchise, once celebrated, might face a bleak future, with fans potentially abandoning it for good. It's disappointing to see BioWare take this route, and as much as fans would hate to see it fail, many agree. They'd rather see Dragon Age laid to rest than watch it become unrecognizable. This is where the fan community stands, with voices like Critical Drinker offering a much-needed reality. Thanks for watching today's deep dive into Dragon Age Veilguard and the impact of identity politics on one of gaming's most beloved franchises. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Here at Movie Saga, we're always bringing you the latest in gaming and entertainment with honest insights and in-depth analysis. Share your thoughts on BioWare's direction in the comments. We'd love to hear what you think. Until next time, stay tuned and keep exploring with us at Movie Saga.